Oh, wow. Look at that. We are here. It's
Woo!
Friday night. That was,
Woo!
it's Tinfoil Hat Friday, and that was the new theme
Love it.
song. I actually had it composed way back in 2018, and I never used it because it didn't fit the show, but it's called ESP theme. It's kind of UFO and psychic stuff. We had them do it to, like, if we had those gonzo glasses or whatever, Ganzo experiment glasses on, and we had them like do it like we're, I don't know, tripping on LSD.
Well,
Appropriate for what we're about to
remind me
talk
talk
about.
about LSD.
Woo!
It reminds me
Um,
of Twilight Zone or the old, the 70s horror shows
yeah,
or
yeah.
sitcoms, which I love. So, huge fan of those. I
Well,
love it.
when I was 18, I actually did LSD,
Ooh,
and I did it 3
let's talk about
times.
this.
Well, I did it 3 times, and before we talk about this, guys, remember to like, subscribe, share, follow us. Miss Emily Mann's house has a website. I have it on a Q code. So I'm going to stick this up in the
Oh,
corner.
well, thank you. Thank you.
And if you screenshot or whatever and you get that up there, you can go to her website. It's whatthefricklive.my.canva.site/whatthefricklive. But it's there up on the Q code. Please follow Emily. And if you're listening on X, follow Emily if you're one of my followers, because I do her show. She does my show. I was just on her What the Frick Live. So we're constantly supporting each other. So please support
Yes.
Emily.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, share this and subscribe on my Rumble. My Rumble has now 42 or 43
Mm,
followers. So my God, you guys got to go over there and subscribe. You'll hear more conspiracy stuff like this that we're going to do tonight. As for LSD, I don't recommend people, to just jump out and start doing LSD. It's pretty harsh. It's chemicals. But I had no idea. I was like 18. And I thought, well, it's probably like marijuana, like whatevs. I had a big attitude then, and I was an art student. I was big in art, and I thought I was
okay.
like, and this is the '90s, and I thought it was totally cool tripping. And someone gave me a quad, like it's how many times they dip it on the paper or something. It was a paper with a hippie smiley face on it. I remember that. And so I did it, and I found out was nothing like marijuana. I hope I'm not getting in heck on YouTube, but I did it other times, and after the third time, I was like, done, not doing again. It was just, yeah, I was like, I could see how that could mess you up. It's not like some kind of natural thing where you just, like mushrooms or something, and even that can be dangerous. It's chemicals, and it's kind of messing with your brain. And what happens is I start to look at myself in the mirror, and your pupils were so dilated they took up my entire eye color.
Wow.
And
Black
I think
eye.
yeah, it makes you so dilated. I think that you see things that you couldn't normally see. Like, in the dark, how your pupils dilate. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
doing that, and you see things that you would never see because it's letting so much light in, which is interesting. Is there another dimension? I don't know what's going
Well,
on.
so, like, how about Joe Fox is on Hey Joe? So what if, like, did you see anything like creepy crawlies? Like, a lot of people talk about insects
Okay.
or they talk about things melting. What did you see?
So, there was like a pile of
Mhm.
dirt on these people's bathroom floor. So it wasn't my bathroom. It's the person I was partying at, and it started to crawl around like a bug. And I was like, "That's not a bug, Melissa. That's a pile of dirt." Now I freaked out. It was my first or second time. I think it was my second time. I left and I walked home to my. I lived with my parents. I walked home. They had no idea. And while I was walking home, I took forever to walk home. I was like, "Ooh," at everything, and I stood there and was staring at this tree that was, and the sort of flowers that were on the tree. What happens is it feels like to me that everything that it's still normally, it just, you can see some kind of life moving in it. It's not like the tree moves or puts a top hat, but the leaves were like, hey, pulsing and moving in weird ways that they weren't. But I was standing there looking at this tree, and I started to hear this noise like something was running, and I look over and there was this big black dog. It just appears out of nowhere, and it's galloping and it's running, and I can hear it. I can hear the chain on its neck. And it was just so crazy. And this dog, and I'm like, oh, like that, watching this dog, and it gallops past me, and I'm like, slowly moving to watch it, and it just goes and just fades right into the darkness and disappears. And I was like, oh, wow, that wasn't real. I was like tripping. I thought that was real. it was
Well,
it was crazy. It was crazy. And then I did it one other time with a friend in another city. And after that, I was like, we'd be doing stopping. And I never, I was like, you can't be doing that stuff all the time.
oh no, like my dad talks about where he took LSD when he was in Vietnam and the stories he has with those. But most of the time, what he saw was things melting in the trees,
Mhm.
which Joe Fox just said here the trees are sentient beings. The trees would talk to him, from what he would tell me. But
Mhm.
mostly they took it because they're in war zone, and he had to actually try to cope with some of the aftermath of a war zone, which normal people can't comprehend it at all. So they gave all these soldiers LSD and a lot of alcohol to cope
Yeah. Well,
back
one of the
then.
things that I will say too, like if like we had vertical blinds,
Hmm.
and they're open halfway open like this, and they were going like this, open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close, and I was watching them, and I'm like, wow, they're opening and closing by themselves. Like I wasn't scared. It wasn't a bad trip. When I was coming down, it was a little weird, but I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't control a lot of my thoughts, and I didn't like that I just couldn't sleep. I'd stay up right straight through. Thank God I was young. I could never handle that today. But yeah, it was just they'd go open and close, open, like someone was going choo choo choo
Yeah.
choo, playing with the blinds, and I was just like, who's doing that? The acid is doing it. So I'm always like, okay, so what if like this drug is like your eyes are opening and you're
Movements.
seeing something, you're seeing movements, you're seeing the potential of something that's happening because I'm watching them open and close, and the only way you can do that is to physically open and close. And my brain's going, well, why is it doing that if nobody's there opening and closing? And then when I seen how dilated my eyes were, I'm like, okay, so maybe I'm seeing something because I'm letting so much light in. But is that quantum? Like, is it that like it's showing you all the positions of the blinds that exist? I have no idea. It was so bizarre.
But there's people out there that do this stuff daily. How can they do this daily? I don't understand. I would never be a good
um,
LSD or peel, you
I
know.
I think they I think they would fry their brains eventually. Like I don't think you could do that daily and exist. That's why I stopped. And the last time I had this weird like coming down trip where I was like kind of funky, and I was like, that's it, I'm done. I think 3 times is good. Hang up the phone. I know what it's about. I've heard people having like demonic, like
Oh,
coming
the
down fully
clowns.
demonic.
They
Have you
see
heard? Have
clowns
you
on
heard?
LSD. And we have a whole thing on clowns on the B system, the other show, which I'm working on a website for that Melissa, she's one of the hosts on the B system, and that'll be out hopefully by the end of next week. The website for the B system, but clowns, they see these demonic beings with masks and all this kind of stuff on LSD. Is it breaking a barrier to the spiritual realm? I think so. Anytime you manipulate
Yeah.
your mind, it can be vulnerable to any kind of attachment.
I had a friend who did it and they did it, and then they went home in a taxi cab. And I guess the taxi cab driver and whatever looked like a demon, and they flipped out. And they never did it again. They didn't want to see. They were like, I don't know what kind of demon. I don't know what it looked like, but obviously it was enough to scare them. And they
Well,
were like, no.
and just real quick, my mom's watching. I'm sorry, mom. I want to tell on you a little bit. Like she would smoke weed a lot, which I do like weed. I will say that I'm a high strung anxiety person. If I could get
Mhm.
medical marijuana to help me sleep, that would probably help me a whole lot. But my mom would smoke weed back in the '70s, and she got it laced. It ended up being laced with something. She said it was the last time she ever smoked weed, and she couldn't trust anybody that gave it to her anymore. She was in Lexington, Kentucky, in the backseat of a car, I think, and she smoked weed, and she felt really funny, like she normally didn't feel. Like typically, we just made her chill out, like what it would do for me. and she remembers turning over, looking at the person, and the person next to her, her face went away and ended up being just a total skeleton. And she freaked out in the back seat of the car in the 70s, and then she never smoked weed again because they start lacing. That's when they started lacing it with things.
The kitties. That's the thing. Like in Canada, it's legal. So if you go get it from a dispensary, it's not laced. But don't be buying stuff on the street. Kitties don't. With all that stuff out there, what's it called? Fentanyl. One little crystal and you're dead.
Well, don't be getting fentanyl, because here's what's happened in the government situation. We used to get poppy seed, from Afghanistan. Well, that became too expensive, so we pulled out of Afghanistan, and then you'll see the Taliban stopped producing poppy seed because it did get super expensive. So now we're funneling, the government, the CIA, all these people are funneling fentanyl through China. They're getting fentanyl from China, they're funneling it, and it's coming across the border. And that's why there's open borders, and that's why we got free crack pipes.
Wow.
Now, so they've always pushed drugs. We got Contra, all that kind of stuff, cocaine, Bill Clinton's, the Clintons, all of them. It's a high organized crime. And they also used all these things for mind control purposes.
And we were on the show, Emily's show. We were talking a lot about, we'll get into different kind of serial killers and stuff that's still going on in a bit, but we were talking about how the CIA, funnels drugs in and affects, they affect a lot of our culture, and they are driving cultural changes, and cultural changes since the 60s and even before that are not very good for our culture, but we've just assumed that that's how things are in. It is because get in frame. Oh, you know why?
We're not up. We're not up.
Yeah.
Up and down.
Yeah. I can't switch that during mid live stream, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Sorry, IG. We love you.
Yeah. Sorry, Instagram.
Yeah. Sorry. It's the first time going live on Instagram over there, by the way. So
I've tried to go live. I've tried this time, but it told me the same thing, so it won't go live. So if we're gonna do something on Instagram, I guess I'll have to do it mobile version. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
That didn't happen today. But there's like this MK Ultra stuff and dictating us not through just by drugs. I mean, the CIA is probably the reason all the fentanyl's in our lives today, which is, I mean, it's pure. Let's just say it's pure evil. But there's also a lot of this stuff comes into the culture, all this drugs, and it affects people. It affects how people would, I don't know. I mean, that how they would perceive life. It affects the formation of cults. We know cults use drugs as part of, luring people in as part of the process.
It's also a real quick cover-up of sex trafficking or any kind of trafficking in the United States. It just looks like it's a random overdose or an overdose in a hotel or something. And it's an easy way to kill off society or high
People
potential threats.
Threats. So we were getting into a lot of California being sort of this hub. And San Francisco is one of those places. Okay, when I was doing my graphic design degree, I did a interactive HTML online kind of PDF of San Francisco. So everybody else, it was supposed to be tourism. They just did San Francisco, go to this bridge, go to this thing. Well, I had to do something crazy where it was like the bridge came down. It was all psychedelic, and it was basically telling you that San Francisco was a magnet. And it drew weird people there. And then I would tell you all about the weird people and where they lived and all the history of San Francisco, like Alan Watts, the guru, Harvey Milk, with the gay bride thing. It was big in that. All this weird stuff. Haight-Ashbury, so I had this really trippy PDF, and I wasn't on drugs when I made it. It was just my creative thing. And I always saw San Francisco as this magnetic place. And then I look at all this stuff and I'm like, yeah, magnetic for satanic serial killer lunatics, maybe.
Well, look at all the people that jump off the bridge. Suicide, San Francisco. What is that? Is that the Golden State Bridge, right? Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah. And then look, we got Lacey Peterson.
The Golden Gate. the Golden
Golden
Gate.
Gate. Sorry, not Golden State. Golden Gate. Then we got Lacey Peterson, if that's a more modern kind of crime that happened there. But the Zodiac killer, didn't he bury some bodies there in the San Francisco Bay Area?
That was his hunting area.
And there's a lot in California. There's a lot in Colorado, and there's a lot in Michigan.
There is, and apparently Utah's a strange place too.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it obviously attracted
the Mormon
Bundy.
Mafia. Mormon Mafia. That's what I call it.
Okay, so we just went and did a paranormal night at the it's called the Great Saltaire. It used to be a pavilion, and it's burned down a bunch of times. Now there's this new kind of it's like a concert venue there, and it's right by the Great Salt Lake, and there is probably so many people that's bodies get dumped out there by mafia or whoever doesn't like them. And they were telling us this, and I'm like, great. And then you got all the salt there trapping the spirit. Oh yeah, it was really weird. So yeah, there's a lot of that. If you want to know where they dump bodies, it's there.
Well, it looks like an Egyptian
it's kind of mosque-esque.
Mosque.
These, like,
that's what I was saying.
So
they have like little yellow toppings on here. It looks very interesting. Was it around water at one time?
Yeah. The water has receded.
Okay.
But there's you can walk if you keep walking. There's it's a salty lake, which when do you get a salty lake? You don't.
Yeah, you don't. That's ocean. I'm
It's
looking at
not
pictures
ocean,
here
though.
online. I know.
It's just
That's
the landscape.
weird.
There's tons of salt there, and the Donner Party on their way to California, they have like a marker where they cross through. It's out probably towards Pleasant Grove or Salt Lake City, and that marker is near a place where they think Ted Bundy took some bodies. Seriously. But they think that them having to go through all that salt area is what caused them problems later on and caused them to get stranded in the mountains and stuff. It led to it. So salt can be bad. You can get knocked off and buried there, or it can whack your wagon.
Whack your wagon. That should be a t-shirt, Melissa.
Whack your wagon.
That's funny. I'll buy one. I swear, put Gen X on X, whack your wagon.
What are you doing? Don't whack your wagon.
Don't.
No.
Oh, my mind. Anyway, let's go.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to go back to California.
My face is turning red a little bit. Cheers. Anyway, listen.
We'll go back to California. I've got a video. I think I've got some videos here do I have anything about I have one about Ted Bundy before. Oh, he reveals why. I wanted to I forgot to pull up the video. I wanted to do something on the Zodiac killer. I mean, this goes crazy. Like, there's all sorts of things, like the Process Church. And they think the Process Church was involved in like some of these what you call it? Son of Sam.
Oh, Son of Sam, yes.
Yeah. He was involved in this big cult.
And well, I mean, they're all pretty much involved in a cult eventually or previously, in my opinion. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're not. I just you go ahead. I just got distracted by trying to pull up that video.
Well, I was looking for a Zodiac killer video I did listen to today because, the previous show on What the Freak Live, we were talking about the CIA and the connections to serial killers and Zodiac sign. Honestly, I think the Zodiac, the whole thing, I don't think there ever was. I think it was all CIA created storyline. Yeah. And I think they knew who the killer was. They're just never going to reveal it.
Well, they're saying that they think it's some kind of military guy now.
Oh, I'm sure it's probably.
They found him.
Well, I'm sure it's military or CIA or just, poor person. They like to use the low income families to manipulate and get in for their testing. But, or a government official. They're always tied, but 9 times out of 10, they're always tied to the military. These serial killers.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is the way that he's like coming up on kind of like a lover's lane scene and shooting people is like very similar to the Son of Sam.
Well, they create these copycat killers that really truly don't exist, but they make them exist. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Can I say that?
Yes. Well,
So-
and then it spreads. I'm gonna let's play this video and we'll see what they say about
Okay.
the Zodiac.
One of the most mysterious cold cases in American history is one that you might already be familiar with, and he called himself the Zodiac Killer, a serial killer who brutally terrorized young residents in the San Francisco area in the late 1960s and claimed to be responsible for the death of 37 people. The Zodiac Killer targeted young couples and would shoot or stab his victims to death. The murderer sent a series of letters with coded messages, which were put in newspapers for the public to help solve. The first cipher read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. For over 50 years, leads have gone cold and the Zodiac Killer vanished into thin air." But now, a group of sleuths might have identified who the killer was. A man came forward and claimed that his stepfather was the Zodiac Killer, and that when he confronted him about it, he tried to kill him, so he went on the run. Go to part 2. One of the most mysterious cold cases in America.
Yeah. So that's really kind of creepy. Whoops. They're saying that, but I heard he was possibly identified. But it's so interesting how that happened before Son of Sam, and they're very similar. And writing weird notes, and what the heck is that? And BTK, he did stuff like that, taunting. And I know Jack the Ripper, they kind of do that taunting thing.
yeah,
But
Jack.
the code stuff is so bizarre.
Well, I think they were implementing a little bit of new technology that they already had, like coding, or maybe a possible future of AI coding and stuff because they always have to tell us what they're doing or show us what they're doing or something, and it might be showing us a different level of communication that way with Zodiac. But I honestly believe that they know who the Zodiac Killer was or is, if he's still alive, and that it's probably military, and it was an experiment, and then the CIA went with it, and then we have the media doing what the media does with propaganda, and making it really out there to brainwash other people as well. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me, that's what I think. It's all a game. It's a game.
It does make sense that they would install that, but to what? I mean, it's like, to what is the final purpose? Like, to start whacking young people, or do they get out of control? And like, why would they want someone to go? Well, I don't know. I guess they get people to do crazy things all the time. Like you were talking about Timothy McVeigh.
Oh yeah, Timothy McVeigh is alive and works for the FBI. Let me see if I can find a video on that.
Yeah, find a video on that, because I find that fascinating. If that guy's alive, I mean, my God. Didn't he just go to jail, or did he get the death sentence?
He got the death sentence, but he's alive. It doesn't matter. It may say that he's in there, but
this officer who saved 4 lives was found. On today's episode of The Truth Really Is Stranger Than Fiction.
Okay, I'm gonna send you. Where do you want me to send this to you on Facebook? Send you this video?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. I'll see if I can download it into the system.
Okay.
I don't know if
Or I can send it. I can send it to myself and then upload it, right? I can do it pretty quick. Okay, let me send it to myself.
You can also screen share your computer screen.
Yeah.
That's all I did. Because if it's mobile, it's not going to look good when you share it. Yeah.
Hold on a second.
And if you can bring it up in the browser, if you can bring it up in the browser and share your browser, it'll do the sound. If you just share it from your desktop, you won't hear the sound.
Oh, it won't do sound? Hold on a second.
Wow. So we have funny, you're talking about the Zodiac Killer. My dad and I were talking about it this morning. That's really interesting. We read your mind. We're psychic.
Here, let me just send it to you because it's not going to let me do it this way. Let me send it to you and see if you can.
Try
I'm doing it from my phone.
Can you send me the link so I can just bring it up in the browser? That way I don't have to upload it.
Yeah.
Convicted Oklahoma City bomber. And on the right, we have FBI agent Paul Weisable.
You see here. It's more than 19 seconds, so I don't know what that is. Or maybe it's not more than 19 seconds. Why won't this? It won't even let me.
Don't worry, I got it. I think I got it.
Oh, you got it? Here's the link. Here's the link. It's him.
You think it's
him? It's him. It's 110% him. With Timothy McVeigh. And this is kind of goes with the Vegas shooter too. Recent in the last few years.
Okay, let's get a handle on this one. Sharon. All right, here we go. It's only 15 seconds, so pay attention, guys.
After the Oklahoma City bombings, this officer who saved 4 lives was found.
On today's episode of The Truth Really Is Stranger Than Fiction, on the left we have Timothy McVeigh, convicted Oklahoma City bomber, and on the right we have FBI agent Paul Weisable.
Wow, they look an awful lot alike.
After the Oklahoma City bombings, this officer who saved 4 lives was found.
On today's episode of The Truth Really Is Stranger Than Fiction, on the left we have Timothy McVeigh, convicted Oklahoma City bomber, and on the right we have FBI agent Paul Weisable.
That's him. That's him. You can't convince me otherwise. Like, that is him. Wow. And he was military. And you know what? Paperwork was in that building, right? It was to take down the Clintons. Paperwork in the Oklahoma bombing Clintons. Highly doubt Google. It was linked to Hillary Clinton. And, you know, we see too, it's not going to tell me on Google real quick, but the documents that was in the Oklahoma City stuff was criminal paperwork to convict Hillary Clinton. And we have that same situation that goes on with 9/11 with the Twin Towers and things. And so they've been doing this game. There's nothing new under the sun. And these people are crafted to work for the enemy, which spiritually speaking, we can call that Lucifer, satanic cults and all that kind of stuff, whatever you want to say. But they do the same thing over and over and over again. And you always have to follow the money on these things too. But Timothy McVeigh absolutely was military, and he's still alive. He's not in prison or jail, or they put him to didn't they put him to death or something? What was with Timothy McVeigh? I can't remember.
Does anybody out there know what happened? I'll type it up, but if you do, you can leave it in the comments.
I can't remember. But he's definitely alive.
So they're saying he died June 11th, 2001.
He didn't die.
He was only 33.
Oh, so here we go. And 33. Isn't that awesome?
What was the name of that FBI agent? Like, how old is he now?
Well, hold on. We in the previous show tonight about this stuff, Charles Manson, he had 33 members in his cult. We had hold on, I have it wrote here down here in my notes.
So if that guy is around 50, if that FBI agent's around 56 years old right now, he totally would match up.
Yeah.
Similar to the age.
But John Wayne Gacy, so happened to kill 33 people. Ted Bundy had 33 victims. We talked about Ted Bundy a little bit. 33 victims also. Dean Coral, which was also military, the Candyman, he was 33 when the police shot him. 33. Like, how interesting all these serial killers or these terrorist killers all revolve around that number.
That is very interesting. What was that FBI agent's name again? I can't remember.
Oh, I can't remember either. Play the video again. I'll top it out real fast. FBI.
There it is. Yeah, he looks so much alike. It's just crazy.
It's him. You can't.
Like it's him.
It's him. Hold on, I'll play the video. Let me see. Hold on.
4 lives was found on today's episode of The Truth Really is Stranger Than Fiction. On the left, we have
Paul, Paul, and Wysopa. It looks like Wysopa, or there's a L. Wysopal. Paul Wysopal, maybe? Let me look that up.
All right. Paul Wysopal, FBI agent. We're doing some investigation live.
Yeah, investigation live. Anybody wants to chip in? Go ahead. Go on your computers. Look this up.
Hi.
It says special agent in charge of FBI's Tampa division. It won't tell me his age. He first, FBI began his career as an FBI agent in 1997. When was the Oklahoma bombing? City bombing occurred when? It had to be around the same time. I think 1995. So 2 years later, he becomes FBI agent. That's when he starts his career. He worked for violent crimes committed on the Red Lake Indian Reservation. He was in 2002. He was promoted to supervisory special agent in the Office of Congressional Affairs at the FBI headquarters in Washington. Of course he would, because he was used as the pawn in the freaking bombing Oklahoma City.
So he would have been, let's say, because Timothy McVeigh was supposed to be 33 in 2001. So he became an FBI agent in 97.
1997.
So maybe 29. Do you think that sounds about the time you might have a degree and become one?
Possibly. Yeah, that Paul
could be a little older.
Absolutely, Timothy McVeigh. Like, I can't, that's the conspiracy theory that I'm going to sign up to. And I believe 110%. Like, that's it.
That is compelling. That is totally compelling. Wow. So that really leads, to all this stuff where you get all these attacks and these terrorist attacks, that it's planned by, that just gives some sort of meat to it, doesn't it?
Well, they always plan, and the FBI has worked with serial killers in the past. We have that one guy. They always use 3 names too.
Yeah,
that they worked with
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah,
yeah. John Wayne Gacy.
What was the guy that they worked with?
Ted Bundy. I can't remember his name. I know that in terms of I have a thing. I want to cover the smiley face killers yet, because a lot of people think these smiley face killer stuff is the new ring of international serial satanic killing happening, and it's targeting young men. It's really
It's always been about young men, though. It's always been. There's an article that came out a long time ago. I can see if I can find it, called Boy Love. Let me see if I can find that Boy Love article.
Well, John Wayne Gacy, they were all 17 to 20. Look at that crap. That's why whenever I hear about Gacy, I can't even watch it, because my son's that age. And I'm just like, can you imagine your son going through that and you can't save him? I think I would take the jail time and just kill the person who did it. I would just go right for him.
Well, that deals. Well, see, this all involves with Boy Love. It all comes down to a big, huge ring of people, that the first island, if you want to call it an Epstein Island, was in North Fox Island. And, you know, what stemmed from that was the integration into the Boy Scouts, because they had summer camps, and that's how they trafficked these kids on North Fox Island. And you know what? Across from that island was another camp. I'll have to look it up. I didn't plan on going into this, but guess who attended that camp right across from North Fox Island in the 1960s?
Gacy? No.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Wow. So I had my son in Boy Scouts in Canada, right? I took him out. Because I wouldn't. He didn't go camping, but whenever they had a camping thing, I sent his dad as a volunteer to be with him, and he only went on one big thing. But what they were doing, what the Boy Scouts does, is they offer it for free to people who are financially
single mothers.
Single mothers, or they're on welfare, or they're low income. And this whole school where we took him, the whole area is low income. And I'd go into his Boy Scout meeting, and there'd be people on drugs and dropping their kids off, and just a disaster. And the kids were like, no, you could tell there was problems. And I was like, and they weren't really doing anything. And he did more camping with his father. And I just pulled him out. I pulled him out and put him in Muay Thai and fitness at a local owner. And we started doing boxing. I just pulled him out. I was like, this is ridiculous. And Boy Scouts in Canada does a program where poor people get it for free.
Same thing. Jeffrey Epstein. They target these same low income families. It's the same cycle over and over and over. If people just research and read, they'll see what's going on. This has been happening for a long time. And North Fox actually put child trafficking on the map. And that's when Congress first came to fight against child trafficking, was during the North Fox reveal. I don't know what you want to call it. They finally got caught, but it dealt with the mob. It dealt with government officials. It dealt with everybody. It dealt with camping, the boys' camping sites, and actually they used magazines to communicate with each other, and then tied in with John Wayne Gacy and also the Candyman. The Candyman was helping with North Fox.
I heard that John Wayne Gacy was kind of like, he copycatted that Candyman.
He might have, but we also know John Wayne Gacy was also in government. He ran for office and stuff, and he was
definitely politically involved. Yes. And it's a good cover. You look like you're, hey,
that's
I care about the community. I'm a happy clown. And he got his victims not from being the clown. He got his victims from his construction company, and he would offer them jobs. Come and meet me, come this. And he'd take them to his house saying they were going to meet and discuss a job position. And that's how he would get them and trap them. And I'm not going to go and describe what he did, because it was really awful. It's really horrible.
I think one of the boys that was actually was a victim of Gacy was also one of the leaders, leaders at the North Fox Island camp, too, summer camp.
Wow.
And so it's huge. And then like one of the major people that got caught, like there's 4 people involved in that North Fox Island incident that happened for many years. And one of them was John Benet Ramsey's grandfather, because he was over aviation. Yeah. Over aviation. He had that airstrip built on North Fox Island. And then when this all busted up in 1978, he knew who was going in and out. And he also flew people in and out of that island himself. But when this busted in 1978, he ended up retiring shortly, like 2 or 3 months after they caught this. So he retired and bailed out. The 2 other people that was a head honcho's a millionaire. You always have to have a millionaire in this. And I can't remember his name either right now, but he was like mafia. So mafia is involved in this. And then we had a school teacher out of New York, which pretty much ended up being a whistleblower and had struck a deal. But the 2 other individuals like fell off the planet of the earth. Like people to this day don't know where they are to be held accountable for what happened at North Fox. But these individuals love islands. They do everything on these islands.
It's hard to get on and off. You can contain people easier.
And you know who funded them the most on North Fox Island? It was Christian churches, Christian groups. They funded. This is absolutely crazy.
You gotta wonder. So well, it goes so crazy. That's why we always have to question all institutions. Yeah. I'm gonna play that smiley face killer video.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
You can see what the smiley face is about. And they could be linked to other cult stuff that had happened. They could be linked to all this stuff in California. I mean, you've got the Process Church.
Okay, guys,
you got all sorts of stuff.
This is great.
Wait a minute.
Who are
there we go.
The smiley face killers? Since the 1990s, nearly 50 college-age men have been found dead in or near bodies of water all across the United States. Nearly all of them fit a profile of intelligent, fit, and popular, and almost all initially vanished after leaving parties or bars only to be discovered much later. Strangely, smiley faces are always seen near the crime scenes, and the condition of many of the bodies do not fit the timeline of discovery. Many believe that the men are held in captivity for some time before being murdered. New York City police detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte believe that an organized group of murderers is responsible for the crimes. Although this has yet to be proven, even so, members of Congress have called on the FBI to investigate. Is there a serial killer network operating in secret in the United States? Fact or fiction? You decide.
Yeah, is there? Probably. I don't know, because I'm sure there's compartmentalizing in the FBI, people who don't know, but I'm sure there's people who know.
Well, there's that new person that got killed in Nashville, Riley Strain, that's really popular on TikTok from a bar and all that stuff. They're saying it was a happy face killer. Or smiley face. We have happy face. There was a happy face killer too. The daughter of happy face killer is actually on TikTok. But now they're saying smiley face. Is that just because they're mimicking happy face?
I have no idea. I guess it's just.
But that Riley Strain incident, which is really weird. I think if we want to go into college fraternity brothers, and that goes into the Idaho 4 murders, I think some of these fraternities, sororities, and stuff are quite evil nowadays. Like, I would never trust a sorority sister if I had to go right now to college.
Do you know how many horror movies I've seen in the 80s where they're initiating whatever, and it's this horrible group of girls, and it turns into some satanic shit that goes crazy, and all the girls get... I don't think I want to be in a sorority.
Well, they do that in sororities and fraternities. They have all these rituals and everything that go on now. Like, I don't know if I trust it, Mom.
It's like a humiliation ritual, to be honest. They humiliate you and they torture you, and some of them get dangerous.
My mom was part of Delta in the 70s at University of Kentucky. And she said the worst thing that they had to do back then in the 70s was swallow a live goldfish. And she had such a hard time because she could feel it wiggling around in her throat and even her stomach. And sorry, everybody, this is a little bit, but she would regurgitate it. And it took her several times to swallow it. But nowadays, it's way more than that. It's more alcohol influenced or drugs, LSD or something like that under the table.
They probably get you to do some kind of weird orgy crazy stuff now.
Maybe
I could see that. You see that college girls go wild shit.
Oh yeah, but I even when I was in college, I had no desire to join one of those, sororities or anything like that. But there's something definitely going on. And the smiley face killer with the guy there in Nashville, that's what they're saying now. It's all over TikTok that they believe he's a victim of the smiley face murder killers.
Yeah, I can bet you that he is, and if this is still happening and no one's been arrested, you can bet it's high. It's high up. It's totally high up. I didn't get to read this article while I was on your. I have an article about Ted Bundy in California. I got some Ted Bundy stuff to cover, so I'm gonna share it.
Jet's peeking his head through. I'm gonna have to help him for a second. Okay, I'll be right back.
Go ahead, guys.
Okay.
Go ahead. So I'm going to read this. While she's gone, I'm going to read this article. We're going to talk to we're going to talk about Bundy. Here we go. Let me see if I can find this. I'm trying to find this article. Here it is. We'll share it here. Ted Bundy, a suspect in Sonoma County cold cases. I got to scroll down. Kursa would like nothing better than to have an answer to the question that has haunted him all these years. Who killed 13-year-old Lori and 6 other girls and young women in what came to be known as the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders? And so, guys, I'm going to pause here because on Emily's show, I was talking about how serial killers like Thomas Creech would say that they would pick up hitchhiking girls and drug them, give them some PCP, and then he would say that they would take them to some kind of basement where because they were Satanists, and there'd be like 20 people there, and they would just start butchering them for their satanic ritual. Was it true? Was he lying? It's possible, but it's kind of interesting that young girls are being picked up by hitchhikers. But he also said he saw Ted Bundy at one of these rituals. So they're saying this man soon may have an answer. Investigators think there's a chance the murderer was serial killer Ted Bundy, and they are devoting new efforts to try to prove it. Bundy was executed in 1989 after being convicted of murdering 2 women and a 12-year-old girl in Florida. That was Kimberly Leach. Before he died, he confessed to RAing and killing at least 27 other women throughout the West, including at least one identified victim in California. So we know he operated in California. So we're saying, was Bundy there? Maybe Bundy was there. I don't know. But there's actually something to be said, because Bundy had a girlfriend that he had met in the university in Seattle, I believe. And she was from San Francisco, and he would often go down there. And he actually applied to go to university down there. I believe he was in Stanford. Let's see. Did he do these murders? Bundy connection. Here we go. Here's how he's connected. The more innocent hippie flavor era is partly why it's so easy for Bundy to hunt women from Washington to Florida up until 1978, when he was finally caught. He liked to RA, strip and strangle, and to dump the remains near roads, and he bashed many of his victims in the head. That's how he subdued them. Bundy also attended Stanford University in 1968 and is known to have visited his girlfriend in Palo Alto and San Francisco. So he's in these areas where a lot of these killings are taking place. He actually has other serial killers identifying him, at certain locations in Washington and in California, that he was part of certain rituals. They could be lying. He's known to have visited that plus the fact that Bundy told investigators that he killed somewhere unspecific in California still has him in the mix for these Sonoma County killings, as well as unsolved similar slaying of a woman at Stanford in 1973. Some investigators in the 1970s said credit card receipts put him in the Northwest too frequently to have been in Sonoma during the times of the slayings. But a chronicle examination of police records show that in each of the killings, there were gaps long enough to give him at least a 2-day window to drive to Sonoma and back. Ex-detective Keppel said Bundy at times drove hundreds of miles to kill. One of the last times I talked to Bundy, I mentioned California, and he looked at me like, I can't talk about that right now, Keppel said. I think he believed his execution could be stayed so he could talk for years about his crimes, but the governor had other ideas. The Bundy-Sonoma connection is also part of the focus of a documentary and book being assembled for the fall by Mike McCann, whose uncle dated a woman Bundy confessed to raping and strangling, and author Dennis Purdy, who has researched the killer since 1985. Bundy fits a lot of what's there. So I was just reading an article about Bundy being involved in Sonoma killings, Emily, and they fit the criteria of that Thomas Creech thing that they used to, pick up hitchhikers, give them PCP, and, they would disappear and they'd take them to someone's basement. Well, these girls that disappeared in Sonoma, it's likely that Bundy killed them. And they have identified Bundy being in there because he had a girl. He went to Stanford. He had a girlfriend in that area. He would often go back and forth. He was in the San Francisco area, so it's really easy to tie him to that area. So this whole pattern of picking up hitchhiking girls or boys and using them as satanic rituals and killing is, I don't know, I think it's getting more compelling every day.
Well, and then, we just to pick up hitchhiking. I don't know if it happens so often nowadays because I don't even look at people that stand on the side of the road. I'm scared too because probably of all the past of things. But, the CIA has tactics like in body language and training and teaching people body language. A lot of these serial killers also talk about body language, and they kind of pinpoint their victims before they even go, just by the way they walk, how their necks tilted, even the size of their foreheads. There was some serial killers that talked about foreheads and everything. And that's something the CIA, there's a book of the CIA in body language, and that's something that they look out for. And they use in tactics of interrogation and things like that too. So I don't know. I'm not a mind of a serial killer, but very rarely do I ever look at body language or looking at somebody and like, I want to see how their body language is. Or I really don't do that. Do you?
I think we pick up on body language unconsciously, especially if we're uncomfortable or we feel odd about someone. But it's really interesting that you said that because I have a video where Ted Bundy talks about how he picked his victims, and he did that just before they executed him. So I don't know if you read my body language or you're psychic and you read my mind, but you literally just lined up the video on Bundy.
Well, we have routine. We have routine with everybody, right? So we have a routine, and they love to do copycat. And if you look at these serial killers, they all say the same things too when it comes to body language, which is also the same stuff that the CIA looks for in people.
Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna let me share that video, but I haven't heard it. I want it to be surprised. I don't know what he's looking for, so we're gonna find out.
Okay.
Together.
I can't remember what he said, but I do remember he talked about body language.
All right, so here's the video. Hours before his execution, Ted Bundy revealed why he selected his particular victims.
The night before Ted Bundy's execution, he asked to have a sit-down with his therapist. And just hours before he was to be executed, she figured out the seed moment that sprouted into the victim type that Ted Bundy would always choose. And it proved that Ted Bundy had been a monster his entire life. Check this shit out.
I got a call from his lawyer saying he wanted to meet with me before he was executed.
Testing.
He gave me permission to tape the conversation.
January 23rd, 1989.
I asked him, why did he ask to see me? And he said,
I suppose you're more interested in me and what was going on in my head and how this developed.
I was not fascinated by his perversions. I was far more interested in how he got the way he was.
Whatever his motives for asking me to come to Stark and mine for coming, our 4.5 hours together on the day before his execution were riveting.
Your sisters, did you ever kind of look at them while they were dressed in bathing? Because that, you said, was a curiosity you had.
In my teens. Well, this is something I've never told anyone, and I almost promised myself I never would.
Like the tape recorder?
Well, yeah. But
when the tape recorder was off, Bundy told me that he had had an encounter with one of his sisters. Later, his mother told me that Bundy had told his sister that she should be careful because there was someone out in the world who was killing women who looked just like her.
The night before Ted Bundy's execution, he asked to have a sit-down with his therapist.
I was with his sister. I do think that Ted Bundy, though, also had a type. Because he favored brunettes, right? All of
Yeah,
his victims were
brunettes
brunette.
with long hair. And
Yeah.
it was similar to that girl that he went to the university there for, in Stanford, who basically broke off with him. But I think he was serial killing long before that. There is, I actually have a video of the attorney who talks about him having more victims, but the attorney actually thinks that he had gotten a young boy and into the woods when he was younger and killed a young boy and maybe even killed a young girl in the neighborhood. So I don't think in the 70s, I don't think that's where he started. I think he started sooner, and
Probably not.
and I think he was torturing cats when he was really young.
Yeah,
All
and I
sorts of
think,
stuff.
and I also think the CIA and the government, they always institute these therapists, CPS, the judicial system, and all this stuff. Everything has been weaponized, and I think that they can target these people at a very young age. And if they are harming animals, that would be a perfect candidate to turn into a chronic serial killer or something, and use the drugs or the programs that they have to initiate their studies that they've done for over years with mind control programming.
Yeah. This one is they interviewed one of Ted Bundy's, I think his appeal lawyer. I don't think it was the lawyer on the actual case, but I think it was that same lawyer where I talked about, I don't know. Anyways, this is at the end of his life, so he was telling people information. So here's what he said about Ted Bundy and his victims.
Browns spent hours and hours with serial killer Ted Bundy.
He's about to publish a memoir including never-before-known details of his most notorious client's murderous secrets. C.R. Douglas sat down with Brown recently in a very candid interview, and he joins us now with the story. C.R.?
Maria, before his execution in 1989, Ted confessed to authorities to killing 30 women in 7 states. But as you're about to hear, his attorney John Henry Brown tells us that's not the whole story.
Ted told me things that he's never told anybody before, and they will be in my memoir when it comes out. But
like,
Ted, like he told me he killed more than 100 people, and not only women, which that's new. That's never been known. You're the first person I've ever told that to. But it's in my book.
Men were his victims.
One. His first.
Were you ever scared of him?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, well, and actually kind of got more scared after putting things together the last couple of years, writing about it. And I was talking to people who introduced me to Ted and how I got involved with Ted. And I now believe that Ted actually chose me. And but I found out that he researched me. He knew where I lived. He knew what
John Henry Brown.
clothes I had.
3
He knew
names.
what kind of cars I had. He knew, and the women I was dating were the same kind of women that he was murdering. I mean, it was really, so now I've kind of put this together recently, and that's creeps me out a lot because I had also lost a woman friend to a murder. My girlfriend, when I was in law school, was murdered.
See, this is all set up.
I was in D.C.
And he was in law school too.
So,
Bundy went to law school.
And he knew that.
In Utah.
You don't assume he had anything to do with it, but just that he knew that?
I pray to God that they didn't. And I never even thought about that until recently because they reopened some of those cases in California.
Because it's never been solved?
Nope.
His girlfriend in California was murdered.
It wasn't in the area where he told me he
So
had
bizarre, huh?
killed people.
After Bundy's second breakout from a maximum security prison, law enforcement across the country was on full alert. A few weeks later, when 2 sorority girls were killed in Tallahassee and 3 others severely attacked, suspicions grew that Bundy was responsible.
When he escaped the second time, the country was frantic. The FBI was number 1 wanted person in the country. And I knew he'd kill again, for sure. And I didn't know where he was. I had no idea to go to Florida where I told him he'd get the death penalty, you know. So I get a call. I was in my office about 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, and I get a call from my answering service. There's a Mr. Rosebud on the phone. And I went,
Rosebud, oh my God.
I knew it was Ted immediately. And he's calling from jail, and he'd been apprehended in Florida. And he was really crazy in that phone conversation. So I had the biggest ethical dilemma of my career that night, because they didn't know who he was. So he's in police
he hadn't
custody
identified
in Florida,
himself yet.
And the cops had no idea who he was. And he's calling me, and I know it's Ted Bundy. And
This guy
I know
is CIA.
if they don't figure out who he
think
is,
so?
and if they release
Yeah,
him, because
John Henry Brown.
I'm looking up other cases right now. He has
release him, and he'd probably kill other people.
he's a lawyer
So
for
it
a
was
lot
the
of
biggest
military
obstacle in my
people. Let's
life.
just
I
say
mean,
that.
Do I
Are
call
you
somebody and
surprised?
say
No.
it's Ted Bundy?
You think
Do
they're trying to
but see,
construe?
ethically
They're
as a
trying to do
lawyer,
official
I'm not allowed
narrative.
to do that.
Yeah.
So you
It's
didn't.
interesting that
I
he called
didn't,
him,
but I
huh?
almost did. And
Yeah.
then the next day, it was figured out that it was Ted. So
He deals with military
Brown says
people
one
with
of his biggest legal
PTSD.
accomplishments was convincing prosecutors in 4 states to spare Bundy's life.
I got a plea bargain for Ted, but nobody ever thought you'd get a deal for Ted Bundy.
Yeah,
And
see,
I got a
he's
deal for
CIA,
Ted
just
Bundy
like
to avoid the
freaking
death penalty if he pled guilty
Lee Harvey Oswald.
to a life sentence in Florida, Utah, and Colorado, and Washington, more or less. And he was going to do it.
Three
it's really
names.
Fun,
They always
interesting
use
story
3 names.
in the memoir.
It's
I
so
think,
weird,
It
hey?
happened because he was going to do it. He was going to do it. And we're walking in this courtroom, and everybody knows we're going to do it. And he turns around and says, "I'm not going to do it." So I think he had a death wish. So in Miami, when he was
maybe
in
you
cell,
wanted him to die.
I had come there I not represented him anymore after he turned down the plea bargain. But I was going to be a witness in his trial about something.
John Henry.
And we spent 4 or 5 hours
John
together
Henry
of all
going
names.
through most of the
Just
details
John Henry.
of what happened. And he was crying.
Sign your John
because I'd seen him
Henry.
before. He's a sociopath. And most sociopaths don't cry. And most sociopaths never say they're a bad person. And Ted looked up to me and he said, "John, I want to be a good person. I'm just not."
He could have been manipulating
that to me
you.
was really interesting because most sociopaths never admit they're evil at all. And I think Ted really knew he was evil. Evil.
Maybe he came
And
off
believe
the
me,
drugs.
Really evil.
For Brown, the Ted Bundy case still haunts him. He's proud of the plea deal he negotiated, but knows he was a killer who deserved punishment.
This is what I'm supposed to do. It's not really fun. It's really hard work. And you don't make a lot of money. So it's kind of my path, I think.
You can't see yourself doing anything else.
Writing, which is what I want to do.
I mean, how much longer will you do this?
Well, 3 years ago, I changed my overhead thinking I would slow down, and since then I've tripled my overhead. So. I think when the Sergeant Bell's case is over, which will take 2 or 3 years.
John Henry Brown is part of a movie called Man on Fire that deals with the soldier facing hearings in Afghanistan massacre.
Interesting.
He has a lot of clients. This is also CIA operative on a revenge rampage. This John Henry guy is absolutely CIA.
Well,
he's CIA.
It was interesting that they provided that for his lawyer.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, this is all CIA, FBI. They all collude. NSA, all of them. They all collude. Republicans, Democrats, they all collude. Like every bit. And when are we, the people, going to get sick and tired of all this? We have to overthrow Congress. We have to and then reprogram the military and the judicial system. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I have no idea how we would do that.
Revolutionary War 2.0.
The problem with Revolutionary War is sometimes who takes over is like, look at Russia. Their Revolutionary War. They massacred the whole royal family, and the Bolsheviks were worse.
Well, at this point, I'm asking Putin to save America.
Well, Putin's different than those Bolsheviks.
Yeah, he didn't like how he was raised.
The Bolsheviks were atheist, a Jew, and they hated everything Christian, and they actually wanted to invade Europe. Hitler was probably the only thing that was stopping them at the time. Hitler.
And just real quick with this new bill that passed, this anti-Semi stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see what Trump does with this.
We'll see. His son's Jew.
Well, son-in-law, but they've disconnected. They've disconnected, but he should still be for free speech, no matter what. We should still have free speech.
America needs to be a Christian nation. That's
well, and there's ways that Trump can address this and also be sensitive to his daughter and son-in-law. And honestly, if they are true Americans, they should also agree with him.
Exactly.
So we'll see what Trump does with or says over this bill. But sorry, got a little off topic.
So it's okay, but a lot of these people are all linked. Like I said before, you've got Ted Bundy, the Manson family. I'm not going to get into that, but they operated in LA. They killed the Tate Bianca murders. You've got the 4P cult. That's crazy stuff. They had people in Mexico. These people, they also launder stuff. The mafia and all these people, they're tied to mafias. They're tied to biker gangs. They're tied to child trafficking. A lot of these serial killers, and they don't just stick around here. They traffic stuff like in what is it? Tool, Mexico. They'll do Nassau in the Bahamas. I mean, it's crazy. They like you said, they have islands everywhere.
Open borders too. Like the government right now, our current administration is actually allowing terrorists and everything come across the border. And all this drug trafficking, fentanyl. I think we talked about that earlier tonight on the show and stuff. And I don't think, do people actually grasp what's really coming across the border?
No, they're most. If you're a liberal, you're just like, you're a racist if you don't want that coming across the border.
Well, it's just like people don't even understand. Like Brittany Murphy, I'm just going to throw Brittany Murphy, the actress, in here, and her husband. They witnessed some really bad things happening across the border. She was getting ready to testify against the government.
How convenient.
And I honestly believe Brittany Murphy and her husband were poisoned because they had the same metals in their body when they died. There's a whole big thing going on. Her best friend worked for Border Patrol, and they witnessed it with the best friend. The best friend couldn't do it anymore. She turned everybody in. And that was when we had some kind of protection for the border. We don't have any protection right now.
Wow.
So what's coming across the border, and we fund these cartels. Obama funded them the most. He funded these cartels, and we also do illegal weapon trades, and that happened a lot with Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Obama and everything. We fund these people. We give them the weapons to even kill our own people. It's madness. We have very, very much evil people in the White House and in all high government, but biblically speaking, the scripture, let me pull it up so I actually talk about it. But we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spirits in high places. And those high places can be two things: spiritually speaking, in the heavenlies, or in high government, high places. And I think that we have an agenda that's going on in most, if not all, of these high individuals, because they all collude or they're all related. Presidents of the United States, except for Trump. There was another president that wasn't related to everybody. Was it Lincoln? Trump and Lincoln were not related. I think that's what it was.
Wow.
All the presidents. So we're fighting, spiritually speaking, of these beings in high places. And it deals with the presidency. This is a agenda that they're pushing, and it's spiritual and physical. And people need to pray and open their eyes to what's going on, but a lot of people are blinded.
Yeah.
And they are using people, serial killers, these serial killers. They're using people and programming them at a very young age.
And I mean, the programming's changed a little bit. It's not, we're seeing a decline in serial killer. Men are being a little more feminized, seeing transhumanism and trans stuff on the rise. And God knows what's next, but they have this, look, they've planned this, what we're going through right now, since the 60s. They've been planning population reduction by making people gay. I know people are going to get offended by that, but the CIA and all these people have planned this cultural stuff out. Yeah,
the UN, United Nations, they have 10 commandments too. Everybody go to the United Nations and look at the 10 commandments. Take Jesus out of church, or take Jesus or the Bible out of schools, not out of church, out of schools. And they have this propaganda, but also I think their mind controls come out in a different ways with video gaming. Video gaming.
They're targeting video gaming more and more.
Yeah, video gaming. And I wouldn't be surprised, like, how many of these, like, mass murderers that we have with the schools, maybe this is something we should look into and, like, dig deep. How many of them were gamers? Because the CIA can see and watch, or the FBI can see and watch who plays what games. They can interface with these people and start manipulating them through AI or through technology to get them to do something, and they're grooming them. How many of these in the last 10 years, let's just say, mass murderers, terrorist attacks, were actually gamers?
Probably most of them, of the mass shootings and stuff, they've been into video games, and then they're depressed and they get them on like some kind of, antidepressant or medication.
ADHD.
Yeah, all this bullshit, and they just need to get away from the games because they're addictive and go the hell outside. I mean,
Adderall.
I had my son outside nonstop away from TV when he was little. It's only been since he's a teenager that I've seen a lot of this gaming stuff, and he, buys it himself. But when he was little, he wasn't allowed TV in his room, nothing. We were outside playing all the time.
I think it deletes the empathy of somebody. It makes them more shallow when they start killing. Like, I wouldn't let my son have certain games until he got at an appropriate age. And there's still a lot of games he's still not allowed to play.
I think it just numbs them out and makes them like zombies. So they're like, it's not, intellectually inspiring him. In fact, older cartoons from the 90s and 80s, like if you play older cartoons, the kids don't get as addicted. The stuff today, it's really addictive. They can't stop watching it. And there's a lot of cartoons that are slower pace moving, and they're not as addictive. Apparently kids don't
anime.
They react to them. Yeah, they react to them.
The anime genre of everything, like, it's totally different than the cartoons I grew up watching, like Scooby-Doo or Pink Panther and all that, the Smurfs, which they all have a hidden agenda underneath them, all that, but like anime, and it's a lot of Japanese, Chinese anime that is actually punched in, and my son watches some of it. I do review the ones that he watches, so I'm very cautious of that, and he's not allowed to watch certain anime, but it's like this false fantasy, this AI. It's transhumanism.
You want to know something interesting? I do have a video clip, but we're looking at transhumanism and all this stuff now, but I have a video clip of Anton Lavey, and you can see that it's been around for a while now. Anton Lavey is tame compared to all what we've been talking about. I don't think he was a serial killer. I think he was a narcissist, probably had personality disorder. But he was totally isolated as he got older. He didn't have, like, before he had celebrities and people were doing nude rituals. And I think it was all just a weird sex kink stuff happening in the 60s and 70s, which I think is bizarre. But he got more isolated, and he started to engage with things that weren't human, like mannequins and weird stuff.
That's what happened with narcissists, right? Over time, they get old and they have nobody, and they die alone.
It was kind of interesting to hear him talk. I hope he says this in this video, but he talks about a concept that's, to me, like almost transhumanism. Like, you just need to talk to AI. You don't need any human. Let's see if he says that. I found the clip, and they're interviewing him in his house. Now, at the end of his life, he couldn't even really he had the Black House in San Francisco, of course, back to California. He couldn't really even afford to pay the rent, and they took pity on him and let him live rent free. The house is no longer there. It is now I think condos are a really nice house, but let's watch him. I put it at a point, I think, where we see him sitting. He's got his lady, I don't know what wife it is, but his daughter, I want to also remind you guys, his daughter, Zena Lavey, she has a different name now. She actually denounced Satanism, and I think there's an Aquinas guy that was associated with Satanism that was also possibly involved with trafficking and stuff, and he may have been involved with Lavey. I'd have to research that more. But anyways, let's watch how creepy this is. No.
Ew, he's so creepy. Monkey.
There's the mannequin bartender, mannequin sitting at the bar. Mannequin. He just surrounds himself by non-people.
Wow.
That was his inside of his house. It's all like these weird mannequins that he would interact with. There he is.
Excuse me.
Doctor, could you tell me
That's
when
his
all
wife.
this Android stuff started?
Well, young lady, it's interesting you should ask. As a matter of fact, I've been sort of eager to talk about it. It's one of my pet projects. I've been doing these things since mid-50s, and they started out with a double I needed for a sort of midnight spook show, a seance, where there was to be a sacrificial victim, a girl that was going to meet with sort of foul play, and we needed a replica of her. And I had a store window mannequin that looked very much like the girl in the tableau that I was using, but it needed modification, so I added a little plaster here and there, and then it was closer than I really expected it to be to the real appearance. So after this thing was pulled off with some success, I decided about a year later to go into the production of people for my own amazement and to see what I could come up with people that really looked like the kind that I would have created, or if I could pick out a person in a bar or on the street and custom make them, just what I could do with it. So I experimented with fiberglass and polyurethane foams and PVC, vinyls, various things, and eventually just turned out in varying degrees of realism, different people. I never considered it an art form at any time. As a matter of fact, I was
calls them androids.
To exhibit them after some other artists had started making super realistic sculpture figures. And I felt this was a highly personal thing. It was an evocation of my own. And the idea got to me that maybe these people had something more to offer in the way of companionship, certainly for me, than the real people that I had been associating with. So I began to infuse them.
Every time she moves, I can't believe she's real.
I invested them with a certain kind of life that I appreciated as companionship much more than most real people. And I became somewhat obsessed with making better people, more debauched people in some cases, more understanding or sympathetic people, and I found by the addition of certain devices I could bring a sort of semblance of life to them. It's nothing really spectacular.
Gosh,
I don't claim
creepy.
to have replicated human beings perfectly, but at least for my purposes, they serve quite well.
Utterly narcissistic. And he was into that, creating fake people to replace real life.
Well, every single time I was listening to him this, I remember the movie Mannequin. It was late 1980s. I loved that movie. And I listened to that soundtrack over and over again. I am sharing my screen. It's a trailer of the Mannequin. Is this predictive programming? Let's see.
Jonathan Switcher
Punk sex.
loves to talk to his work.
You know, you're the first thing that created and made me feel like an artist. Don't you like your new scarf?
He never expected
Not especially.
to hear it talk back.
I really think I'm going crazy.
I am so glad you're working here. I never thought they'd hire anyone stranger than me.
You're the only one who can see me like this.
To the rest of the world, he's a disaster.
You're fired.
And she's a dummy.
You are one sick puppy.
But together,
Hey, don't do that.
You weren't so shy when you were creating me.
You weren't so real.
They
make magic.
Look at him whip it at me.
Who are you to criticize?
That new stock boy, I just want you to keep an eye on him for me.
I think I'm going to handle things my own way. All the girl mannequins disappeared from the windows last night. Film at 11. Yes, my dear, your favorite. She is gone too.
Get him!
Mine's bigger than yours is! Go get him!
You're magic.
He's talking to the dummy again.
Andrew McCarthy, Kim Cattrall,
You know I would never bother you when you're getting a piece of wood.
Mannequin.
I cannot believe my mom let me watch that, but I'll tell you this, the soundtrack is phenomenal. The soundtrack is awesome. Those classic 1980 songs. But is that predictive programming?
Oh, yeah. And when you see that stuff, it's predicting us to a lonely life, like sex dolls.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's predictive program because it's weird, like it's creepy. Like you think it's funny, it's this joke. But
I
when
didn't
you really
even
look
think
at
about
it
this when I was
as
young,
an adult,
teenager.
you're like, dude, the guy's making out with. He's so pathetic that he has to suck face with a mannequin, and he's so it's almost like he's delusional. Like it's almost like she comes alive, but she's not alive when other people are around. That's really weird.
That reminds me of what's his face just now that you just put up that video.
Well, and I think with him, he's such a narcissist that it's easier for him to get along with people who he can control, who can't talk back, who can't do anything. So he's creating this whole fantasy world, but it kind of feeds into this transhumanism, weird, strange stuff we're going through now because people are isolating themselves and just,
Or how about
bizarre.
this with the serial killers, all the serial killers and mind control programming? Are they sitting there and thinking that these people are not real? They're just objects. So are they reversing this and making them like almost like it's a mannequin rather than a human being?
Just go look at Jeffrey Dahmer wanted someone that was a zombie just to, so he could do whatever he wanted and didn't have to put up with rejection or anything like that. You don't have to engage with other real human beings.
This is crazy.
And they can. A lot of young men aren't able to. The women are out on OnlyFans and whatever, and they want these women all want this like big rolling moneymaker to sell themselves, and they're not getting married and having children like they used to. It's a disaster. It's a disaster for them. They don't realize
part
it's a
of one of the
disaster
UN
for young men.
Well, that's part of one of the UN's top 10 or 10 commandments themselves is to split up the home. And women have to work and fathers have to work to divide that family dynamic. That's part of the top, the 10 commandments of the UN, which was all part of a satanic cult.
Yeah.
And so.
And then you just, instead of being around real people, you have these weird expectation from all the media and culture. And you want a hot chick, you want a hot mannequin, you want a sex doll with big giant boobs.
And just get
it's
on
better than
Metaverse.
your normal wife who has a normal body, and women are engaged in it too. It's really bizarre. It's such strangeness, and it is part of a devious depopulation message that's been there with feminine, with everything. So although that looks like a comedy and it's funny, it actually is a little bit creepy now that I look at it as an adult. It's creepy.
I love that movie. I love that movie. More so the soundtrack.
Weird.
I'll just say that. More so the soundtrack of that movie was good.
How weird would you be feeling if you're Andrew McCarthy and you're shooting a scene and you have to like kiss a mannequin?
I didn't even think about that until right now.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, he had to film that scene.
I have kissed guys that felt like mannequins. I'll just tell you that. They're so stiff.
Well, it's
in the face, nowhere else.
Where does Hollywood come out of? California. We got crazy biker gangs, Charles Manson, Process. Well, the Process Church is all around, and like I explained on your show, a lot of this stuff, they're like cells, right? These cults and these serial killers, they're like little cell groups, and some of them like will splinter off of Scientology. Some of them don't splinter off; they just imitate. They become little cells that are because it's the thoughts in there, and then these cells become a network. Whoever's running it. I don't even know if it's all one person. Antifa runs that way. Little cells all over the place.
And
then
Black
they
Lives
network.
Black Lives Matter too.
Yeah.
You know,
They're little cells, and you can't pinpoint one. It's not like a Jim Jones cult where you can go, there's the leader, go get him, stop it. There's stuff all over the place. And it's the same with these cults. Like well, let's be honest, the leaders are probably in government.
Well, also we got P. Diddy that's
Yeah.
also supposedly be working with the government too. Now, Harvey Weinstein,
Well,
however you say it,
he just got
overturned.
off. He says, yeah, that's the prosecution's fault. 100%.
Lord.
They should have known better how they did it. They have to retry him. They shouldn't have bring all those women in there that had nothing to do with the case testifying. There were no evidence to that specific case.
That possibly could be, but it's just like this guy. I believe he's going to get off because he's so influential. But
probably.
I think he's going to get off. But I think the more women, the better.
The hysteria, though. Look at the hysteria around all that with Me Too. People were making up fake accusations like crazy. People get crazy.
That's true propaganda to try to get money, which we're seeing that with Trump and all the allegations against him with Stormy Daniels. And shame on Stormy Daniels, because I interviewed her on What the Frick Live with paranormal stuff. No, she is part of the program. She's part of the program.
She doesn't have much character. She just wants money. The minute when I seen her on your show, I was like, oh, now she's doing paranormal. Great. What a money hoe.
Yeah, I don't support her anymore whatsoever, and I hate to do that, but I there comes to a point in time I do, and right when it's like in between things and all this stuff, you can see a pattern with her when it comes to Trump. We're going to throw Stormy, but they don't talk about where she's lost and she owes Trump $250,000 right now. They don't talk about that. They just keep regurgitating her.
I think all the cases are going to go bad against Trump. They're all bad to begin with. They're all based on bullshit. So I don't see. I mean, it's so crazy. So we're in it for an hour and a half. I want to kind of tie it up so we can get on with our night. Do you have any final words on this whole? Well, I think California is a hot spot. It's a magnet spot, especially San Francisco. Especially San Francisco for the weird and creepy. But what do you think about all this processed church and satanic and this kind of spider web of satanic cult, child trafficking weirdness?
I believe that San Francisco is also a hot spot. I believe Colorado is with the international airport. I believe Michigan is. Any time it's close to a body of water and you have all these serial killers or all these different things that's coming out, with like mass shooters, all that kind of stuff. I think it's all programming. I think if you even look at the mass shooters, let's just do the high school shooters. Columbine, I knew that was very popular when I was in high school. It affected me very, very much. But they all have the same kind of criteria, all these kids and people. And I think that the FBI and the CIA is behind all this stuff. I think that they do use gaming as a tool for mind control now. I think that they used other things like LSD and drugs back in the day in the 70s. But if they are releasing whatever the CIA and the FBI, because I'm a big, huge person on the FBI vault. I've sent you so many links on the FBI vault. Whatever they're releasing, you better believe that they have already moved on to something else. So it's okay to release it. But I believe, and this is just maybe me being naive, I think me growing up in the 80s and 90s, in the early 2000s, I think people had good hearts. I think it took a lot for somebody to be so evil to carry out an act. And I think if they would have to carry out an act, it would have to be drug-induced, programmed.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still think that. I think that the majority of people don't want to harm others, but they're using other techniques now to AI, gaming, all that stuff now than what they used to do. But I do believe the majority of the serial killers, since this is serial killers, maybe from the 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, I do
All
believe they were
boomers, but
programmed. Yeah,
a
I
lot of
believe
them
the
are
baby
boomers.
boomers. I believe the baby boomer generation was absolutely experimental. Majority of them, and
the image I have right up there, it shows you the boom in serial killers, and this is all post 1950s.
yeah. Well,
And now it's coming down.
Well, what I mentioned earlier on the show on What the Frick Live is because we talk about George H.W. Bush as being part of the CIA, but before him, during this baby boomer stuff, it was Sidney Gottlieb. I don't know. Gottlieb before Bush, and he was a scientist, and he was biochemical scientist. Why would a scientist be over the CIA during this time? And he dabbled in LSD and other drug influenced things. So I honestly believe that the serial killers, Charles Manson, all of them in that era that they would call copycats, were actually projects. And that falls into North Fox Island with John Wayne Gacy and the Candyman, Dean Coral, and military government and stuff. And we really didn't touch on that.
Okay,
tonight.
so here's what's interesting. It's in this graph, they're showing you since the 70s the bulge of serial killers, all this red here.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's
So
CIA.
they're showing that to you. So they say, oh, well, there was a population increase. Okay, we're going from 1960s where there's like 10 or 15 victims to 350 just be in the 80s and almost 300 in the 70s, right? So they're saying population increase. But by the 70s, there was only a 13.4 population increase.
Well, also, I mean, that's only a population increase, but that's the generation that grew up on TV and all that kind of stuff. But I just want everybody to look at the Rockefeller Commission of 1975 and their investigation into the CIA activities, because one of the biggest people that was trying to break this was Frank Olson, and he ended up being a jumper. He jumped from a 10th floor window and committed suicide, which we all know that
How
they try
convenient.
to do. Yeah. And his wife said the last thing he said to her was, "I made a terrible mistake." And he was the first scientist appointed to the U.S. Army Biochemical Lab of Fort Detrick during World War II. And he created biological weapons of mass destruction. And look up Operation Harness. He was the whistleblower of what daggone, what's his face? I just said his name. That was before Trump, or before
Right.
Trump, before Bush.
Right.
Is Sidney
Gottlieb? Yeah.
Gottlieb. He worked under him, and he was the whistleblower. So they suicided him off. But look that stuff up and go from there, and then it's going to lead you to North Fox Island and all this other stuff, craziness.
All right. Well, I'm going to start signing off. My headphones are dying.
Oh no!
They're like, I can't do any more podcasting.
Can't do it anymore.
Right. Well, that was all a whole lot of information. You can go back
It
and
was.
look at that, guys. Check out Emily Men's House's website. Do I have it up here? Well,
You
I
got
have it
the-
up here on the Q code. It is.
Thank you.
Let me see. I believe it is whatthefricklive.my.canvas.site/whatthefricklive.
It's going to be shortened.
But you can go, it'll be shortened soon. And you can also, all my links are over at Gen X News, genxnewsx.com. And please subscribe to the Rumble channel if you are watching right now. I know there was about 6 or 7. The other day we had 14. So how many people do we have right now? We've got 3. It's gone down. But I appreciate you guys on Rumble, new people watching. Make sure to subscribe. This also streams on X. It's streaming on YouTube, so make you subscribe there. And unfortunately, it didn't work on Instagram because our dynamics are messed up. But thank you guys so much for watching this show. It was a little bit of a rumble, but I think we had fun. I think it was good.
Rumble.
Rumble.
Go subscribe to Rumble.
And we'll be back next week. And I don't know what we're talking about, but we'll see. I have some good guests next week. I have Mika about the third part of the Symbolism God, and I have Jer and Nish coming on Wednesday. They're always good.
May the 4th be with you, and being in Kentucky too. Tomorrow's Kentucky Derby. May you be lucky.
Happy Star Wars Day, everyone.
Yes, may the 4th be with you.
All right, guys, I'm going to sign out here, and you guys take care.